Much, Stephanie. Congress is on its summer break as a new set of automatic spending cuts is set to take effect this fall. And there are some fights on the horizon over immigration, health care, and the debt ceiling. Our Representative Brad Wenstrup represents Ohio's 2nd District in the U.S. House, and he's with us this morning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wenstrup. I want to start because President Obama has said he's going to have a news conference today to address a couple of things. And one is the terror alert, which has a lot of our embassies overseas closed right now. Can you give us any insight on that current threat?
Well, the threat is very real, obviously, around the world. As you may know, I served a year in Iraq, and I've come face to face with those that want to kill Americans. And so we have to be constantly vigilant, and the dynamic is constantly changing. The president has made this decision to close some of our embassies, and probably a wise move if they feel that the threat is there. We have people all around the world that are watching this situation, monitoring all the time.
He's also expected to talk today about Edward Snowden, and I just saw a report in the New York Times yesterday that said the NSA is searching vast amounts of email here in the U.S. and overseas. Where do you stand on the issue of privacy versus the safety of Americans?
Well, the Fourth Amendment is obviously a big part of our culture, and our privacy is very important. And so there's that fine line, right, between protecting Americans as far as life and death and also protecting Americans' privacy. And that's the job of Congress, to oversee really what we are doing in this role. Trust in the government right now is, I think, at an all-time low. Just look at the approval rating of Congress, and the president's approval rating is going down. And you have scandals like Benghazi and the IRS and Fast and Furious. So you have these issues, so people's trust is way down. People want to believe in their government, and so it's up to us to make sure that we're assuring that people's privacy is protected while continuing to try and protect the American people.
How will you do that? How will you assure us that our privacy is protected?
Well, I think we need more oversight. If you look, and I wasn't in Congress before now, but the Patriot Act has been reapproved a couple times. And I think it's time that maybe we take a look at actually everything that we're doing within the Patriot Act. More non-government oversight. And for example, the storing of data. You're talking about phone records. Well, people assume that the phone company keeps that record, right? You get your bill, you want to know who you called and why they're charging you, so you assume that they keep it. And I proposed to General Alexander that the phone company be the one that keeps it. And if
not the government.
And not the government. And if there is sufficient
But they're moving toward making a cloud system where they're able to store even more information, and they're going to get rid of administrators and choosing computers instead. We just reported that this morning.
And I, like all Americans, have concerns about that.
Okay. Representative Wenstrup, you brought up a really good point about the lack of trust in government and the lack of the low approval ratings for Congress. And you're getting ready to come to a really important time again where across-the-board cuts are set to take effect at the end of September if you can't agree on spending plans. I can't remember a time in all the time I've covered news when Congress and the president haven't been able to get along, and the parties have been so far apart. Do you feel like there's any room for getting everybody together?
I think there's room. I'm encouraged within my freshman class. As we went through orientation and spent a lot of time together, and we still meet bipartisan about once a month to go over issues, and I'm encouraged from that aspect. But let's talk about how business is supposed to be run within America. It's very difficult. Let's just start with the budget. The president's budget was due in February. It comes in 2 months late.
There hasn't been a budget passed in 4 years and 5 months.
Well, the House of Representatives has passed.
But there hasn't been one passed by both houses and signed by a president in 4 years and 5 months.
You're exactly right.
Do you not find that inexcusable?
I do find it inexcusable. That's why we passed no budget, no pay in the House, which really, because of the attitude of the American people on this issue, the Senate went and passed that, and then lo and behold, for the first time in 4.5 years, they have a budget. Well, we may not agree with the budget, but at least they're saying what their set of principles are. And the president has his budget out. It never balances. The Senate never balances, but at least we know where they are. But it was 2 months late for the president. And some years he put out a budget that not even any Democrat voted for. They were all against it. So this makes running the country very difficult. So really, what is the cause of gridlock? You got to get the machine running.
How do you get people talking again? I mean, I think that's the question that everybody's asking. Why can't these people just sit down and talk? We're all Americans. We all want the same things, right?
Well, that's just it. We often have common ground. And if we can put aside some of the small nuances that separate us, we could probably do a whole lot better. And I find that since the time I've been serving in Congress, of course, I'm on Armed Services and Veterans Affairs, those are pretty nonpartisan committees. But I've found that people are pretty congenial, want to discuss the issues. A lot of times it's when they get in front of the camera that you start to see the vitriol.
Representative Wenstrup, I really appreciate your time this morning. I wish we had more time to talk, but we have to wrap it up. Have a great break. I know you're not really on vacation. Right. You're doing a lot of work, but we appreciate your time stopping by.
Thank you. I'd be glad to come back.
All right. We'll be back with more in just a moment on the Fox 19 Morning News.